The stone was cold. The screams were muffled. And the end, if we are to believe the most infamous account, came not with a blade, but with fire. September 21st, 1327. Berkeley Castle. A king lay dying, not on a battlefield, not in exile, but in a chamber that stank of damp stone and betrayal. His name, Edward II. His crown gone, his dignity in tatters. And if the legend holds, his last moments were a grotesque theater of symbolic vengeance. A red-hot iron, a horn tube, and an execution designed to punish not just the man, but the man's alleged desires. It was not a swift death. It was not merciful. It was a calculated act of horror. The guards held him down. The horn was forced between his legs, and through it, the iron, glowing red with infernal heat, was plunged into his body. No marks on the outside, no blood to stain the stone, only the stench of burnt flesh and the muffled screams echoing against stone. A punishment not only of pain but of silence, of erasure, of shame. But was that truly his end? To answer that, we must go back to a boy born to rule, yet destined to fall. Edward was born in 1284, son of Edward I, the Hammer of the Scots, a king of steel and sword. But the boy preferred rivers to ramparts, crafts to campaigns. He swam, he rowed, he mingled with peasants, he fed pigs, he repaired roofs, he laughed with commoners, not nobles. His father was horrified. A prince should wield a sword, not a shovel, should conquer, not commune. And he adored a young nobleman named Piers Gaveston. Their bond, fierce, devoted, and possibly more, would become the axis on which England's fate would turn. They were inseparable. Where Edward went, Gaveston followed. They dressed alike, dined together, whispered in corners, laughed at jokes only they understood. Chroniclers noted their insoluble bond. Courtly love, or something the church could not name without condemnation. When Edward died in 1307, the crown passed to his son, who immediately recalled Gaveston from exile. He gave him lands, titles, and power. Power reserved for princes. During Edward's coronation, it was not his queen, Isabella of France, who stood at his side in splendor. It was Gaveston, bearing St. Edward's crown. The insult was thunderous. The nobles seethed. The French princess, just 12, was humiliated. The realm shifted. Their love, if love it was, spoke in whispers and chroniclers' ambiguity. He loved him beyond all measure, wrote one. A covenant of constancy, wrote another. They shared chambers, clothing, counsel, and confidences. When Edward gazed at Gaveston, courtiers said, his face softened, something between reverence and yearning. They spoke their own language, finished each other's sentences, and were rarely seen apart. Was it a brotherhood forged in youth, or a bond that challenged the sacred boundaries of their age? Some whispered it was unnatural, others unholy. In the grand halls of Westminster, sermons were murmured against sodomy, and though no names were uttered, all eyes drifted toward the throne. The church held its breath. The barons sharpened their knives. Whatever the truth, whether romantic, carnal, or platonic, the perception alone was lethal. Gaveston became the lightning rod for the noble's rage. He was exiled, recalled, banished again. Each return inflamed the aristocracy further. He mocked them with nicknames. He strutted in jewels, and the king shielded him. Until finally, they had enough. He was hunted, betrayed, captured. And on a lonely road near Warwick in 1312, justice, noble, brutal, unrelenting, found him. They dragged him from his horse, mocked him, spat on him, then stabbed, beheaded, and left his body to rot in the sun. No royal rites, no mourning. Edward wept. He screamed. He beat his fists against the stone walls of his palace. His heart, torn from his chest, now bled for all to see. And he never forgot. But kings don't grieve in peace. The country faced war with Scotland, and at Bannockburn in 1314, Edward's army was shattered. His authority crumbled. His people suffered. And then came the dispensers, Hugh the Younger and Hugh the Elder. New favorites, new enemies. They ruled in his name, crushed dissent, confiscated lands, executed rivals. And Edward? He watched. Isabella, his queen, did not. She waited. Then she fled to France. And there, in defiance, she found an ally. Roger Mortimer, a baron-turned-lover who vowed to destroy Edward and his favorites. In 1326, they invaded. The people cheered. The nobles switched sides. The king fled. If these stories speak in a voice that chills, subscribe. We tell history as it bleeds, not as it's polished. Captured, humiliated, Hugh Despenser met his end on a scaffold 15 meters high, hanged, then cut down alive, castrated, disemboweled, burned, beheaded, his severed head boiled and displayed. Edward, meanwhile, was forced to abdicate. His son, Edward III, was crowned, and the fallen king sent to Berkeley Castle, a prisoner of the crown he once wore. And then the whispers returned. He was kept in filth, denied comfort, driven slowly mad. They hoped he would die of despair, but Edward held on. So one night in September, the guards returned, and what followed, if true, was one of the darkest executions in royal history. The horn, the iron, the fire, a murder to match a myth, a death to reflect a sin. But what if it didn't happen? The story of the red-hot iron appears only decades later. It's a tale drenched in suspicion, not certainty. Chroniclers with motives, with loyalties, with vendettas. A king, Edward III, seeking to vilify his own mother and her lover Mortimer, who he would later arrest, try, and execute for treason. Could the horror of a red-hot iron inserted through a horn be the poetic invention of a son hungry to justify patricide? A story crafted, not to reflect truth, but to paint vengeance in flame? A dramatic tale, yes, but drama is not fact. And in the haze of medieval politics, where every parchment bled bias, such a story may have served as both myth and weapon. More smoke than fire, more theater than truth. Some say he was smothered with pillows. Quiet, intimate. A betrayal delivered by soft hands in a silent night. Others claim it was poison, slow, agonizing, invisible. A chalice passed under candlelight, a sip that seared from within. And then, others go further. In 1333, a letter reached Edward III, claiming his father was alive, that Edward II had escaped Berkeley Castle, crossed the Channel in secret, lived in disguise, and was now a penitent hermit in the Italian mountains. A man even appeared in Germany at the court of the Holy Roman Emperor, calling himself Edward of England. The resemblance, they said, was uncanny. He spoke of courtly life, of names and places he should not have known. His voice trembled with memories only a king could own. The tale spread like wildfire. Some dismissed it as fraud, others insisted it was a miracle. Yet still, the rumors clung to court corridors like damp fog. Was it madness? Was it cunning? Was it a ghost from the past or a desperate bid for attention? Or was it perhaps the truth, gagged and buried by those with everything to lose? A king too inconvenient to live, too dangerous to kill publicly, allowed to fade into obscurity beneath monks' robes and stone chapels. What we do know is this. A royal funeral was held in December 1327. A body, embalmed, sealed, guarded, was placed in a tomb at Gloucester Cathedral. But even that body was never clearly identified. The embalming masked any signs of trauma. The casket was closed. The king's face never shone to the court. No procession of recognition, no display of grief. Only cold ceremony, efficient and final. And that tomb, it still stands. Serene, majestic, deceptively peaceful. The carved alabaster effigy offers a king at rest. Serene cheeks, gilded crown, eyes shut in eternal calm. But beneath that stone, what lies? The man or the myth? The sinner or the scapegoat? If stories like this deserve breath in your world, subscribe. Don't let the dead speak into silence. Edward II's tale is one of contradictions. A king who ruled absolutely, yet was powerless. A man mocked for love, but remembered in legend. His fall shattered the divine right of kings. If a monarch could be deposed, murdered, then none were safe. And through it all, the shadow of his heart, his love for Gaveston, his trust in favorites, never left him. Was he a weak king? Yes. Was he destroyed by love? Perhaps. Was he murdered by fire? We may never know. But this we do know. The echoes of his fall shaped England for generations. He was a king brought low, not by sword or rebellion alone, but by the collision of passion, politics, and power. His effigy lies in alabaster, beautiful, untouched, a statue that hides a scream. That's how history remembers Edward II, a silent king in eternal sleep, while his story, ever alive, burns in the minds of those who dare to look closer.